Well guys, it was inevitable. We finally have another Powerpuff Girl reboot. Except, this is not what I expected. Now look, it's clear at this point that the Powerpuff Girls is more than just a Cartoon Network classic. It's an entire brand. The show has managed to stay relevant in the pop culture conscience years after its original run, and we've seen plenty of iterations and reboots of the show pop up throughout the years. Powerpuff Girls is a brand. It's certainly been merchandised enough, and honestly, I was expecting another reboot of the show. I was kind of just waiting for it to happen. But after the mixed response to the 2016 reboot, no comment there, I thought they'd take a break from the Powerpuff Girls for a while. Just let the girls rest, let the franchise simmer for a little bit. But nah, CW is like, I got this. That's right, not CN, CW. The network, infamous at this point for making pretty much all of the cheesy teen shows, wants to take a crack at the Cartoon Network hit, and the synopsis that's come out so far has left me dumbfounded. First of all, I can get over a reboot of the Powerpuff Girls, okay? I feel like they'll learn from the mistakes and do something new. But I was completely caught off guard by the fact that CW wanted to make it until I read the description. According to a Variety article, Powerpuff Girls could soon fly again. Variety has learned that a live-action version of the classic Cartoon Network series is in development at the CW. In the updated version of the series, the titular superheroes are now disillusioned 20-somethings who resent having lost their childhood to crime fighting. Will they agree to reunite now that the world needs them more than ever? Oh my god, what? First of all, aging up the Powerpuff Girls takes away half of the gimmick of the Powerpuff Girls. They're literally little girl superheroes, that's the point. Not 20-somethings. What are you doing? What is this? Who is this for? These are all the questions that began running through my head the second I read this description, but then I thought about it. And guys, don't flame me, but this might not be as bad as it sounds. Now look, if you're a diehard fan of the original, this may look like they're massacring your baby worse than they even did in the past. If anything, it's tone deaf. Why does it have to be the Powerpuff Girls? It just feels like they're making this weird show and they need the name recognition, so they're tying it into this already popular brand. Honestly, the person I feel the worst for in this situation is the Powerpuff Girls creator, Craig McCracken. He's literally off showrunning a new animated series, Kid Cosmic, over at Netflix. That'll probably be insane. There's only good things coming out about it. But he's probably watching all this happen like, what are they doing to my creation? Or maybe he's indifferent. I don't know. He seems like an easygoing guy. All I know is if I was in his shoes, I would be a little bit upset right now. And look, people's reactions are very mixed. I don't even know how I feel about it yet. But should you jump straight to anger? I don't think so. Let's look at the facts. The last Powerpuff Girls reboot tried really hard to be trendy and modern and completely failed. 4 reasons beyond that, although that was one of the biggest critiques fans cited. But that's not the only iteration of Powerpuff Girls we've gotten. In 2007, we got the anime Powerpuff Girls Z, which in my opinion is just as weird as the description of this new show, although honestly, this show is treated more as a weird novelty. But this is an example of them using the Powerpuff Girls brand and telling a story that's pretty much entirely different from the show in pretty much every single way. But it wasn't all bad. One of the biggest things that's coming up in this conversation right now is Riverdale, and I think that's the perfect comparison. Now, Riverdale is controversial in its own right, but right now it seems like everyone's upset that they're Riverdale-ing another beloved childhood series. If you're not familiar, Riverdale is based off of the famous Archie comics from the early 50s, except it has nothing to do with the comics. All of the characters are different. It's about a different thing. The tone is different. It's a pretty much completely different thing. But it still uses all of the Archie characters, names, and locations from the comics. And look, no matter how you feel about Riverdale, that show was a huge success, showing that in the weirdest way possible, this format works. As somebody who read the Archie comics, I watch Riverdale more as a novelty, just because it's so blatantly not the comics. It's so different from what the comics were. It's astonishing, and that makes it entertaining in a different way. But although Riverdale takes the setting and characters from Archie comics and throws them in a murder mystery, this Powerpuff Girls reboot completely and fundamentally changes the show in every single way. It ages up the characters, it changes their entire outlook on being superheroes, whereas before they were excited and wanted to fight crime, now they are disillusioned and regretful of those times. In fact, this really reads more as a Powerpuff Girls fanfiction than anything else. But the question is that bad? And I'm gonna be honest, it's not like we haven't seen this before. We saw the girls as hypothetical young adults in an episode of the original series, alongside that episode where they got conned into starring in a big Hollywood production that was really just an elaborate bank heist. So this wouldn't be the first time they played around with this scenario. But then there's the biggest elephant in the room in this situation. How on earth do you make a live-action reboot of the Powerpuff Girls? Everything from its style to its snappy animation, to its aesthetic, to the rainbows that trail behind them, and the sound effects they use, the entire thing is bred to be animated. It thrives in the animated format. The reason the show works is because it's animated. So how do you translate that into live action without it looking completely goofy? Look at how the characters look. Their heads, their feet, their hands, or complete lack of hands. how are you gonna make this live action? On-set makeup touched up with CGI? Fully CGI rendered characters? Retcon it so they grew into normal human proportions and hands over time? Ignore it and don't explain it at all? There's so many ways to do it and they all seem wrong. The thing that makes me the most upset is this premise actually sounds kind of cool and would work incredibly well in an animated format. There's absolutely no reason they couldn't make this an animated series. But having it be live action makes it seem more surreal than entertaining. So it's safe to say right out the gate that this is a pretty controversial reboot. However, while this screams bad idea all around, let's play devil's advocate for a second on how this could end up being a weirdly enjoyable, goofy show that people who grew up with the original series could grow to love. First of all, the premise of them being disillusioned 20-somethings who resent losing their childhood due to crime fighting doesn't feel completely unfounded. Even if it does sound like the typical edgy, gritty reboot, it feels like an expansion of a concept found in an actual episode of the original show, Super Friends. You know, it's the episode that gave us the Signal in the Sky song by the Apples in Stereo that used to have a live-action music video on TV back in the day. The entire premise of Super Friends and the montage that features the aforementioned song is that the girls have a new neighbor move in next door who's around their age, Robin. Even though they hit it off and click really well, the girls' quality time with Robin keeps getting interrupted by the Call of Duty. This leads to Robin feeling isolated from the Powerpuff Girls and manipulated by Princess into being a scapegoat for theft, in another attempt for Princess to be recognized as a superhero worthy of being a Powerpuff Girl. Ultimately, there's a sweet heart-to-heart between Robin and the girls, Robin having a better understanding of their sworn duty, and the professor lets the girls have some now uninterrupted quality time with their friend. This was just a single episode, but let's be honest with ourselves. That's a concept worth being explored a little deeper, especially when the girls have the benefit of hindsight. Throughout the entire series, they're just kids. They have the judgment of children. Who knows, when they grow up, they could eventually feel this way. It's not entirely unrealistic, and I'd love to see that explored. Of course, the premise alone can't save it. It's the CW. If you guys have seen The Flash or Arrow or Supergirl, then you know that a bulk of their superhero shows still have the CW formula found in shows like Riverdale. There's going to be drama, love interests, constant cliffhangers that are briefly resolved in the next episode. Like, we don't even need to worry about the action because we're only going to get it for about 90 seconds before the credits. On that note though, the bulk of the Powerpuff Girls' abilities have already been proven to work on a TV budget with the DC shows. The Rainbow Dash and Super Speed, the Flash manages to do it. Their flight, laser beams, and super strength, Supergirl does that, albeit not perfectly. CW shows are like comfort food. We know it's trash TV, but we love it all the same. Why do you think whenever they add a new season to one of their shows, they stay in the Netflix top 10 for as long as possible? And I'm sure streaming actually has a huge favor in why this show was picked up. People love binging these shows, especially when they need to just sulk with a tub of ice cream. We've all been there. So really, well, I'm sure the show will do just fine on TV, for whatever you'd consider fine in 2020. When it comes to binging, it's kind of designed not to fail. Childhood characters going through adult problems for probably 20 episodes, each running an hour. Season 2 might get renewed right off the bat, I'm calling it now. Some CW shows are able to break the formula and blossom into something fantastic, like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, the 4-season comedy musical that had a lot of honest portrayals of the human condition while owning its weird, meta, overly self-aware sense of humor that the network desperately needed. Hopefully, because Powerpuff Girls is a comedy first and foremost, they allow the showrunners to play with that format a bit and allow the show to be as self-aware and hilarious as it could possibly be. Imagine if it came out like Scott Pilgrim in like tone and visuals. That would definitely keep me interested. I think the girls themselves had such well-defined personalities that viewers are going to be able to connect with them at any age. You know you have at least 3 friends from high school that has or had a reaction image of Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup as their profile picture on Instagram. As long as the writers know the bare minimum of what they're doing, and hey, we can talk all the shit we want, but we see how successful they are. There's no reason why the girls should be that different in behavior. Buttercup was already cynical. Cynical characters are more beloved than ever. Blossom can still be the level-headed but sometimes overbearing leader of the group, who's now fighting to keep her optimism. Bubbles can still be the oversensitive sweetheart. Again, those characters feel more popular than ever. And although I would suggest they just make new characters, the fact a trio like this hasn't been portrayed as modern 20-somethings getting their life together is actually kind of baffling. Unless you count that broke Powerpuff Girls mad sketch, but that was just weird. Honestly, I'm actually kind of excited to see the villains revisited too. Unfortunately, well, Mojo, Fuzzy Lumpkins, and the Amoeba Boys probably wouldn't be able to appear as much due to obvious CGI requirements. Villains like him, Sedusa, and the Gangreen Gang could probably make somewhat regular appearances, as I imagine the special effects would require a lot less resources and money. Speaking of the Gangreen Gang, with Ace in the Gorillaz last album, could you imagine this also potentially being a Gorillaz crossover? That might be too much, but I wouldn't say no. Well, this could open the door to crossovers crossovers with other CW shows like The Flash and Riverdale, which would be absurdly incredible in its own right, the more exciting prospect is the idea that other Cartoon Network characters could be involved in the series. Imagine if this weird Powerpuff Girls reboot we don't need ends up becoming the new Once Upon a Time. I mean, just think about it. We could get special episodes with Dexter, Johnny Bravo, Courage, and even Samurai Jack. Imagine Foster's as a whole making an appearance, but like mostly abandoned and just Mr. Harriman, Frankie in her 30s, and drug dealer Mac. And then have those characters interact with DC characters? A fever dream we don't deserve but need. Look, this may be bad, but I think it'll be the good bad that people watch solely for enjoyment and occasional hype moments of, look, Cartoon Network Easter eggs. Plus, I think it's worth mentioning that the original fans of the Powerpuff Girls are now in their 20s or older. This could be more relevant to them now than ever. I definitely never would have predicted this in 1,000 years, which is why I think it's exciting. In the age of reboots, we just keep seeing the same things over and over again. That's exactly what they did with the last Powerpuff Girls reboot, and look how that turned out. This is a weird idea, but it's definitely an original one, and no matter what happens, this is going to be a very surreal show, and I, for one, am on board, no matter which direction it takes. But that being said, I'd love to hear what you guys think about this. Are you excited for this reboot? Are you not? Let us know in those comments down below, or tweet to us Roundtable vids, or me at @TreasureNemo. If you want to consider helping out the Roundtable, you can support us on Patreon, or become a member of the channel and get exclusive access to scripts and avatars. As always, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the Roundtable for more incredible cartoon content. As always, guys, I'm Nemo, this is a Cartoon News video, and I will see you next time. Peace.